Welcome to BizMeds with Darris and Saad, where we give you the medications for your business. This podcast is all about the minimum effective doses you need to make a massive improvement in your business. Listen and enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of
The Unnamed Podcast.
yeah, what's our name?
Listen, we can just edit it in after.
Okay, all right, we'll edit it in after.
That's our ongoing joke is that we've been now doing.
Should we do
another
take of like, welcome back to, and then this is where we'll edit it?
Yeah, and then it'll just be a complete like cutout, and then we'll be in some other area. Like we'll be in like Hawaii, and then
exactly.
Hey, welcome to the, and then we'll just cut back in again.
It'll flow in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
the wonders of modern technology.
Yeah.
Just use AI, and we'll just completely redo the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I went sideways fast.
It did. But to bring it back in, what were we going to talk about?
Well, you're going to introduce yourself first.
Yeah. Oh, right. So we're your hosts. My name is Saad.
And I'm Darris. In the Unnamed Podcast.
And it's on the Unnamed Podcast. So for today, I think we want to talk about like experiences that we've had as being business owners. Him much longer than I have. He's got a lot more experience being a business owner than I have. And just open floor. Like, tell me. So a little bit of background here. We were talking about like some of the experiences we've had with salespeople and having.
I don't want to go down that road right now. I don't want to go down this road. This is where my middle vein starts to split. Anyone that's known me and has experienced dealing with salespeople with me, they're like, "Oh, please don't do this." And it's only because I have a very low tolerance for poorly trained salespeople, and a lot of that is just not their own fault, right? It's sales managers that were probably improperly promoted.
Right.
And they just do what they did, and that's what they teach people. And it's not necessarily the greatest way or best way. And that just perpetuates. And,
So let me ask you, I mean, we both obviously everybody on this podcast has experienced salespeople as a consumer. Mm-hmm. What about as a business owner?
Well, I mean,
is that a different experience?
Well, when you're responsible for them?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's always interesting when you are, training salespeople and, even coaching owners that are looking for salespeople and helping them. I mean, it's such a big topic. And even trying to figure out like where to start with that is, I think that the main part of that, the main frustration is people, they, for some reason, just let their salespeople do whatever. And they don't think it's important to provide scripts. And then I can already hear people's eyes rolling from watching and hearing that. And I'm like, say what you want. The reason we put scripts in place is to help people manage the conversation and not to rely on scripts. But scripts are a really important part to help them get comfortable talking and help take the emotion down on a thing. So here's another framework. We'll just talk about it, throw it in. I think as we go through these, we'll just throw them as we go, right? So for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? And one of my mentors introduced me to this idea, and I have found it to be pretty universally true, right? And so for this instant, when emotion goes up, something has to go down. And that's usually what it is emotion goes up, intelligence goes down. That's how it works in every situation. Yeah, it is normal, sure, yeah. Right? So think about the last time you might have had an argument with your spouse or your partner or anyone. And if you ever said anything that you didn't really mean in the moment, and we all start chuckling, oh, yeah, I remember that. Well, that's because when emotion goes up, our intelligence goes down, and we don't have the ability to rationally stop what we're doing and do it. So how that relates to salespeople is that someone comes in to the store or they're engaged in a sales call and their emotions are generally high. And so what do? They just revert back to their base level of training. That's it. And if their base level of training is they've had none, they're just going to flounder through it.
Right.
So the scripts, if we get them comfortable and train them to the scripts, right, at least we're arming them with something to help them kind of manage the conversation. Ideally, like that's just the starting place. And if we have a really good training system in place, we're going to move them where they internalize the essence of the scripts, and then they become excellent at uncovering, what the true need is and helping people solve the issues versus just having the verbal diarrhea, telling them all the things that they don't care about.
Yeah. So from what I'm getting with what you just said is understanding what the person is there to buy, like understanding the reasoning of why they're there, right? So going back to like the basics of what they're being taught, I think a lot of sales, and I think this comes down to like the sales management team not taking full ownership of like that training piece and ensuring that they are training the salesperson in the right way, or the way they should be trained, at least I believe so, is really understanding what it is that you're selling.
I think that's a big portion of it, right? I think there's a lot that goes into, yes, product knowledge and what it is you're selling. I think there's also an element of belief in what you sell.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
I was just about to say that.
If you're there just to collect a check and you are,
which a lot of people are,
and that's fine, right? And you'll get that everywhere. And this is more around from an owner standpoint, like what is it that you're actually selling and things like that. This is kind of, I was like, do we want to talk about sales? This is like one of those really like broad topics.
It's a tough topic.
It's a tough topic because it goes so many different ways, and there's a lot of nuances. I think the major thing is, yes, you have to have some product knowledge. However, I will say an even bigger part of that is, does the person even want to, or the person that is your salesperson, do they even want to do the job? Do they even do they have the propensity to do that and want to uncover, right?
Where you're going with that,
And then the typical, one of the fallacies I see when people are, quote unquote, selling is they come with this preconceived notion of what this person wants. And they don't spend any time actually bringing value to the table and even having the ability to challenge what that person's perceptions might be. Because I think we've, most of us have gone through probably sales training. The conventional wisdom for a long time was, you have to build rapport, and the more people like you, they'll want to buy from you. And that's actually not what the research says at all. And a lot of the actual research says that the most successful salespeople are they're called challengers. They will challenge your perceptions and your belief system, and they will bring value in a way that shows you how what you think is the issue may not actually be the issue. And then that's how you build trust and get them to move forward. That's a big topic.
It is a big topic, because I do want to also add that sales is not an easy job. It's very hard when you do it right. And also on the sales side, you have to deal with a lot of unfiltered thoughts and unfiltered people. So a lot of times it can be emotionally draining.
Absolutely.
And going back to what you said about that person wanting to sell, if they just, are so emotionally burnt out with like day in, day out, unfiltered people coming in, knocking doors, kicking tires, they're just going to end up becoming, they're not going to care about the job. They're not going to care about what it is, the product that they're selling. They just want that paycheck, right?
Yep.
And especially I've been a salesperson, so I can say that it is tough sometimes when you don't see that money coming in and you're constantly trying, and you get all these tire kickers coming by. So they're like we said, like it's a very tough topic to talk about.
Yeah. There's a lot of nuances, specifically what industry you're in and how you are bringing your potential customers in. Like that plays a lot into, your sales funnel and how you're attracting those potential customers in, whether, it's a service-based business, whether you're selling a product or whatever it is. So that has a lot of impact. So the context up front that's being built with those potential customers absolutely plays into psychology. And so we would say it's a big topic. We could spend probably another 1,000 hours just going through all of the different nuances around it. So how about let's just put a pin in the sales conversation and understand that sales is one, where, especially as business owners, for a lot of you as entrepreneurs and who started the companies, your first role is selling. You have to generate sales. You have to generate revenue. Otherwise, you don't have a business.
Yeah.
So, and what you can do is you can document some of those things and what works. And if you're out there testing and measuring, obviously there's ways to make it happen faster, but that's a good one. What would you say for you has been, can you look back over a point in your life and be like, oh, wow, that was a lesson that I learned? Maybe it wasn't as a business owner, but it was a point in your life where that was a really important lesson that has actually just carried me through and even into being a business owner.
There's so many things that come to mind, but the one that really resonates with me is that everybody you deal with on a daily basis is just a person. Yeah. So,
isn't it?
Yeah. Well, first time I got a professional career job, I always thought the person above me in the role was this guru, this, unreachable individual that has this immense knowledge. But they got there through the same steps I was going through, right? Just taking it one step at a time. So same thing in business. What I've learned is that everybody that is successful and is doing something, they had to fail several different times before to get to where they are. And it helps me knowing the reality of that situation, because nobody comes to this earth knowing everything. Trials and errors are.
Hold on. Even my mother. I wouldn't say that. I was raised by a woman. Sorry, Bob. That knows everything.
I wouldn't call her out on that. I wouldn't challenge her on that. Mommy, you know everything. But what I'm trying to say is, in businesses, people don't know everything, and leveraging those learnings and being humble enough to ask those dumb questions shouldn't be a hurdle.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Oh, I can think of 10.
Yeah.
But I actually think back to where it really hit home for me. And this is, I wasn't even 20 years old at this point, and I was helping run and responsible as a Woodlands manager. And we, again, everyone remembers from, I won't assume anyone remembers from the first intro episode where I talked a little bit about, I was, I came from a forestry company, and my dad had started, and by my early 20s, we were the third largest privately held forestry company in Canada. But I remember being a supervisor on the ground. And this is after working my way up. So I worked machinery with all the guys who were old enough to be my dad, and proving time and time again. It wasn't this getting the position wasn't a right. It was a privilege and earned. And so I remember, and for those people may not understand, when you're working these remote areas, you're an hour and a half outside of the city in the middle of the forest, and a lot of how we communicated vehicle to vehicle was over two-way radio. So they're mounted in the vehicles. And so, I remember this I actually still remember this vividly. Yeah. And I understood the underlying message later on, but the message I took from that immediate moment was I had someone complain to me about another worker. And they had made some claims that they didn't do this thing, right? And it was right at crew change. So we had a new crew coming in, and the old crew was in the van driving back to the city. So they're all done and everything. And so I got on the radio, and I literally called this person out over the radio. So anyone who had a two-way radio within a couple hundred kilometers, could hear, and not to mention all of the people who worked for us, me on the radio calling this person out. And this person got back on the radio.
Is this when your veins started popping out?
I don't know when. I actually don't know when the veins started popping. But I remember then the person I called on the radio and actually responded to me and said, I actually did that. You need to go verify that I did that. And when I looked, I absolutely was mortified. Actually, I felt terrible. Well, I mean, I just felt terrible inside that I had publicly called someone out without validating. Because in the moment, I just took this person's word. I thought, oh yeah, and then at the moment, like, I'm a big shot. I'm younger, and I'm going to teach these guys. And it was I like that lesson has seared into my consciousness, my being, and what I learned later on, and I could wrap a little bit more context around it, was that my ego was just an absolute terrible thing, that I thought I was so important that I need to call that person out, and just having the humility to even just go and investigate it just a little bit, to verify it. And then the best way to do that was actually, if that was the case, go deal with that person one-on-one and not call them out in a public setting like that. And that has carried me through a lot of times.
Was that an emotion?
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. But at that age, I mean, you don't.
At that age, it was emotion intelligence even further up. The angrier you got.
No, this is when you think you're really smart, but you don't know that you don't know anything. But you think you do, right? That's the age. And part of that, again, at that age, it's ego. And it's not until you are humbled and you're able to maybe wrap around that, okay, it's okay not to know everything. It is absolutely okay not to know everything. And it's even more important as a business owner, as a leader, to be okay with not knowing everything.
Right.
And just being humble.
Right.
And not letting your ego get a hold of you. I think that, to me, has been a tremendous, I still think about it. I know exactly where I was. Yeah.
I don't know. Something you're saying there really makes me feel like, it is okay to have business coaches. I don't know, something you're saying there just makes me feel like, not having the ego, feeling that you know everything, and it is perfectly normal to utilize somebody that I think both of our stories sound like that to me.
Again, if you look at, I mean, are all coaches created equal? No, right? That is
right.
Just the first thing, right? Are all coaches created equal? Not a chance.
No.
Are coaches utilized in a lot of places? Is coaching utilized? Absolutely. Right. This is not a podcast trying to convince, you need to.
Yeah.
Right. This is more around, if you are a business owner, you're trying to grow, it's okay to seek out additional knowledge. And the idea is that you want to leverage other people's experiences. You want to get the formula. You want to say, okay, what's the blueprint? What's the framework that is going to help me at the right time? Because a lot of times, people hear, oh, this guy's doing this. Well, he's at a completely different, in a complete different part of the maturity scale than you are. And so, okay, well, that might work for them, but you don't have the context to really understand that that's not right for you.
Right.
And so, whether it's a coach, whether it's a mentor, whatever it is, I think anytime you're humble enough to say, okay, I don't know everything, it's okay to go out and get some help.
Yeah, sorry. I was just trying to make a correlating joke around that, is because, a lot of times, I've been a big victim of this, is having the ego and feeling like, what, I know this, I will figure it out. And then you end up spending several 100,000 hours trying to figure it out, right?
Because we like to do the painful thing, right? We learn, we don't necessarily, even though we might know or get the right answer, for some reason, we love to go and feel the pain of it first. Mm-hmm. Human nature.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy, but it's there.
So I think that also brings up a really an important lesson for anyone, business owners, entrepreneurs, just professionals, knowledge workers, anyone, right? You've reached a certain level, and this goes. I remind myself of this every day. That, and there's even a book called it, and it's what got you here won't get you there. So just because, I think I recommended that one to you early on. And the idea that just because you've reached this stage in whatever, in your business, your career, entrepreneurship, what that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean that you're going to continue on that path, that you're going to continue to have the same results. In most cases, it won't. Actually, in all cases, you have to continually to upgrade your skills, right? So when you get more, when you develop your team out, your level of coaching and leading has to also improve, right? You have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead other people. So if you're having team issues and you're having a lot of turnover, it's probably indicative that you're part of the problem. And that's going to be some tough things for some people to hear. The business is really a reflection of you. And especially if you're having troubles leading people, like that is a direct reflection of you and your leadership ability. That sounds tough. I think it's important to remember, like, it's nothing that can't be improved and learned.
Right.
That's the big part of that. We got a little more serious than we wanted. Let's lighten it up a little bit. We gotta keep this fun. We gotta keep people coming back. We're like, wow, that was a really heavy episode. Which is gonna happen. I mean, to be fair, at the end of the day, some of the stuff we're gonna talk about
is gonna be tough.
Is gonna be
tough to swallow, tough to listen to.
Yeah,
but
ego,
tried and true.
Your ego is your enemy, first and foremost. And then once you can swallow that and put that aside, be a little humble, I think that's the first step. That's really the first step to being okay. And I guess here's another. We were last time we were recording. I think it might have been after. I think most people they go into starting a business. They go run a business or entrepreneurship, and one of the books I usually have my clients read is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and he talks. The E-Myth is like the entrepreneurial myth. And so if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It talks about the people who have the entrepreneurial seizure. And they're like, oh, guess what? I can do this business better. And they go in. And what they kind of understand logically, or they kind of think they know, is that it's hard. Running a business is hard. And doing things is hard. What I will say is you just don't understand the hard that you've chosen. And so then when the hard actually sets in is when it's really discouraging. And that's when you have to keep leaning in and moving forward and one step in front of the other. One of my mentors told me we were given a right foot and a left foot, not a right foot and a wrong foot. And that really hit me. And I was like, oh, wow. And the whole point of that was you continually move forward. You take a step and you course correct. Not every step is going to be the perfect step forward. Every step is an opportunity to course correct. So if you look at the way you walk, we don't walk in straight lines, but actually every step is kind of a course correction. So right foot and left foot, not right foot and wrong foot. Because you can always take a step. The only place you can't correct from is when you don't take a step.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've never really thought about that because, everybody says go right, or, nobody really talks much about the left side and is always considered the wrong side.
Right. So we're afraid to fail. We're taught it's not okay to fail. And again, that's the thing that it becomes, for some reason when we're kids, heck, you're learning something, we're learning a skill, but for some reason at this level of the game, we feel like there's so much more at stake. Right? Yeah. What else do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean, I think we kind of turned something small and fun into and I think that's a really funny thing about you and I talking. We'll go from one topic to another topic, and we could talk for hours. Right?
Yes. We're just limited.
We're limited.
We are constrained.
Yeah.
Probably a good thing, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Forces us to be way more focused.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's how we create. We focus.
And yeah, exactly. So I think we're short on time now. So
yes,
we'll see you guys on the next episode. Again, thank you, Mom, for listening.
I wonder how long before people.
Yeah,
hey, guys, need to stop thanking your moms. But if you're our only fan, then that's worth it. I mean, to be fair, I learned a lot from my parents in business. I was very fortunate. I mean, fortunate, unfortunate. I grew up in a family business, but again, I was very lucky that it wasn't a right. it had to be earned. And, I think there's a lot of people that, the value is in the hardship, right? You choose your hard. Like you don't really learn a whole lot when things are all going right. It's when things go south, they go wrong. That's when you learn. So, sorry, just thank you.
Like I said, we could talk for hours over here, but thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
See you guys on the next episode.